Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story takes place on a quiet residential street where someone decided that having opinions about public parking was the same thing as having authority over it, and learned very quickly that those are not the same thing. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Some people wake up and decide to be the parking police of a public street. Today I had my first real undeniable Karen encounter, and honestly, I feel like I earned some kind of badge for it. My girlfriend and I rent the top floor of a house just outside Boston. We don't own the place, but our lease is clear and boring in the way leases usually are. One car gets the driveway, any additional cars go on the street. I have a second car, so I park it on the side street next to the house where I have a perfectly valid residential parking permit. Nothing creative, nothing sneaky, just boring legal parking. Our next-door neighbor's having work done on his place. He's building a new deck, and for the past couple of weeks, there's been the usual parade of contractors, trucks, lumber, and power tools. He also parks on the street with a permit. The street is public, residential, and first come, first served. No cones, no posted, no parking signs, no temporary permits, just a normal street. Last night, I parked my car on the street near his, not blocking a driveway, not blocking a hydrant, not blocking anything at all, just parked. This morning, I grabbed my keys and headed out to pick up my daughter from preschool. I walked up to my car and immediately noticed a piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper. The kind of paper that never brings good news. The note was written in thick, aggressive pen strokes and said, "Move your car immediately. You have blocked access to workers that need to do scheduled work. Find somewhere else to park." No name, no number, just capital letters and rage. At first, I thought it was aimed at someone else. Then I looked around and noticed 3 other cars on the block had the same note. All legally parked, all with permits, all apparently guilty of existing in a public space. I just stood there for a moment, reading it again, trying to decide whether I was annoyed or impressed by the confidence it takes to boss strangers around on a street you don't own. I wasn't blocking workers. The street was wide enough for trucks. If there was actually scheduled work that required clearing parking, the city would have posted signs days in advance. Anyone who's lived here longer than 5 minutes knows that. Instead, this was clearly someone who woke up, looked out a window, and decided today was the day they were in charge of the entire neighborhood. I went back upstairs and showed the note to my girlfriend. She laughed, then rolled her eyes, then immediately got that look that means, "I have thoughts." "I mean," she said, "we could ignore it." We both knew that was the mature option. We also both knew we weren't going to do that. Instead, we decided on a response, not a confrontation, not yelling across lawns, just a calm, polite, razor-sharp note placed right where it would be found. We wrote it together at the kitchen table like 2 adults crafting the world's pettiest cease and desist. The note read, "Dear Angry Lady, appreciate the handwritten urgency. Just to clarify, this is a public street, and yes, we're parked legally with valid permits. Sharing is caring. If there's scheduled work happening, it usually comes with signage, not handwritten notes from someone who doesn't live on the street. Totally understand the frustration of not being able to control public parking, though. Must be tough. Wishing you all the best in your efforts to micromanage spaces that aren't yours. Your legally and confidently parked neighbor." We didn't sign names, we didn't add emojis, we didn't swear, we let punctuation and tone do the work. I walked over and slipped it into her mailbox. No knocking, no dramatic pause, just a quiet delivery of consequences. When I got back, I half expected to see her storming outside, waving the note, demanding to speak to a manager of the street. Nothing happened. No shouting, no follow-up notes, no passive-aggressive cones magically appearing. The contractor showed up later in the morning and parked just fine. Trucks came and went, work got done. The world didn't end because 4 legally parked cars existed. Over the next few days, my car stayed exactly where it was. So did the others. The notes did not return. But here's the best part. Every time I see her now, she avoids eye contact like it physically hurts. She'll suddenly become very interested in her phone or her shoes or a leaf on the ground. The confidence from the all-caps note has completely evaporated. Meanwhile, I park, lock my car, and walk away feeling weirdly victorious. Turns out some people just need a reminder that public streets are not customer service desks, and the rest of us don't actually work for them. What kills me is that if there had been real scheduled work, the city would have handled it the normal way. Instead, she went full neighborhood dictator with a pen. Your response didn't escalate anything, didn't block work, didn't insult her. It just popped the bubble. And our next story. Sometimes the nuclear option is the only one left. This all happened about 20 years ago, back when I was still a kid living at home. We had a fairly typical suburban setup, a standalone house with a big backyard, a long driveway down one side, and a decent amount of space between us and most of the neighbors. The exception was the property right next to our driveway, a set of 3 attached rental flats lined up side by side, all with their front doors facing our place. For the most part, we got along great with the people who lived there. Over the years, families came and went, and everyone was friendly enough. We waved, chatted over the fence, kept an eye on each other's places, nothing unusual. Then the middle flat became vacant for a bit, and eventually a new tenant moved in. She was an older woman, lived alone, and from day one made it clear she had zero interest in interacting with anyone. No hellos, no nods, no acknowledgement at all. She was home constantly, which made us suspect she didn't work, but that was her business. Plenty of people like their privacy. We shrugged and carried on. The problem started on a Saturday. It was around midday, nice weather, and I was out back mowing the lawn to earn some pocket money. Big yard, old mower, nothing fancy. I'd been going maybe 20 minutes when there was a knock on the front door. My dad answered it and came back looking confused. Noise control. The officer was polite but awkward, clearly uncomfortable even being there. He said they'd received a complaint about excessive noise and had to ask us to wrap things up. He even admitted it seemed ridiculous given the time of day and the fact that mowing a lawn's about as normal as it gets. We finished up and thought that was the end of it. But nope. Over the next month, noise control kept showing up, always during the day, always for completely normal stuff. Mowing the lawn, Dad doing yard work, once, incredibly, for my younger sister and me playing in the backyard after school. We weren't screaming or blasting music. Half the time we were just sitting on the swings talking. We'd lived there for years and never had a single noise complaint before this woman arrived. None of the other neighbors had any issues. It didn't take a detective to figure out where the calls were coming from. My dad asked around just to be sure. Everyone confirmed it. The new woman in the middle flat had been ringing noise control constantly. Apparently, we weren't even her only targets. She'd been complaining about other nearby houses too, just not as persistently. The situation escalated when winter prep season rolled around. Every year, my dad would stock up on firewood during summer, so we'd be set when it got cold. That meant chopping wood in the backyard. One Saturday around 2 p.m., he pulled out his old chainsaw. He ran it for maybe a minute before realizing the chain was shot. He turned it off immediately and switched to an axe instead. Less than 10 minutes later, noise control was back. By now, the officers recognized us. They were clearly annoyed at having to keep responding to these calls, and one of them flat out told my dad that, yes, it was the woman next door again. He also let slip that she was well known to them and had caused problems like this at previous addresses. Unfortunately, as long as she kept calling, they were legally required to show up. The following weekend, same story, Dad chopping wood with an axe, noise control arrives. That was the moment my dad stopped being patient. After the officers left, he stood in the backyard, axe resting on his shoulder, and said something along the lines of, if she's going to complain no matter what we do, we might as well give her something worth complaining about. Cue the plan. A family friend of ours was a long-haul truck driver. Not a delivery van, not a box truck, a full-on big-rig semi with a horn that sounded like the end of the world. He happened to be home that weekend, so Dad gave him a call and explained the situation. Our friend loved the idea immediately. Before anything happened, my parents did the decent thing and warned all the surrounding neighbors. Every single one of them was fully on board. Turns out she'd been calling in noise complaints on multiple houses, not just us. People were fed up. The following Saturday, right around 9 a.m., we heard the unmistakable rumble of a massive diesel engine approaching. Getting that truck down our driveway took a solid half hour. It was a tight squeeze, and I remember thinking the fence was definitely not going to survive. But our friend was a pro. Now, thanks to years of being friendly with previous tenants in those flats, we knew their layout pretty well. The bedrooms were at the front of the units, directly adjacent to their front doors, which faced our driveway. With some careful maneuvering, the truck's cab ended up parked about 1.5 meters away from the wall of the middle flat, right next to her bedroom. Perfect. The horn went off. It was deafening. Our cats bolted under the house. I'm pretty sure car alarms down the street started going off. The horns went again, and then my sister and I got turns, laughing hysterically as we leaned on it with our whole weight. You could hear it from at least a block away. We did this for about 10 minutes, took a break for coffee, then went back out and gave it one final blast for good measure. After that, our friend waved, eased the truck back out of the driveway, and drove off. And that was it. No noise control officers showed up, no complaints, no follow-ups, nothing. The next week, a moving truck arrived. She was gone. No goodbye, no final glare, just gone. The driveway went back to being quiet. We mowed, chopped wood, and let our kids play in the yard like normal people. Noise control never came back, and to this day, whenever someone in my family hears a truck horn, we all smile a little. She spent a month weaponizing bureaucracy over lawnmowers and kids laughing, then discovered what actual noise sounds like. The best part is that nothing you did was illegal, dangerous, or targeted beyond proximity. You just demonstrated scale. Turns out, once the scale changed, she suddenly found peace elsewhere. And our next story. My boss used me as a scapegoat, firing me over their own massive HIPAA blunder. She thought I'd vanish quietly. I'm not a revenge person. I've got brutal anxiety and bipolar disorder, so conflict usually means panic attacks and a spiral I can't afford. My normal move is to shrug, avoid, and never go near the mess again. But betrayal is different. Betrayal flips a switch. I work at a small, privately owned medical facility in a small town. I was hired for basic day-to-day patient support, cooking, cleaning, keeping things moving. The place ran on chaos and prayer. So when positions opened up, I got shoved into whatever role needed filling. Admin, intake, scheduling help. At one point, they made me the medical billing manager with zero experience because you're smart, you'll figure it out. I figured it out because I had to. Then the owner's daughter got out of jail and suddenly I was needed elsewhere. I got dumped into data entry like I was furniture. Data entry was fine. Honestly, I'm good with numbers, fast on a keyboard, and I like organized systems. What wasn't fine, no benefits, no real raises, no reward for taking on bigger roles. In almost 2 years, I got one raise, 50 cents, the standard 6-month bump. That was it. The structure of this place was a joke. The owner had no business running a medical facility. She hired family like it was a hobby. Foster kids she'd taken in got slapped into management roles. Her ex-husband worked there. Some managers were on probation or fresh out of jail. If you were in the right clique, you could do no wrong. If you weren't, you were disposable. I stayed anyway because I was trying to rebuild my life. I'd been unemployed for years. I was trying to stabilize, pay down debt, and build something steady for me and my wife, so I poured myself into the job. I treated the place like it mattered, even when leadership clearly didn't. And because I got moved around so much, I started seeing the real problems. Not petty stuff, serious issues. Network security was sloppy. Patient privacy was treated like an optional feature. Procedures were a mess. I flagged problems and tried to fix them the right way because in healthcare, you don't get to wing it forever without it biting someone. Then came the Friday they decided to stab me. I came in, did my usual tasks, and noticed my computer wasn't working right. That wasn't unusual. Their IT guy was the owner's current husband. He wasn't terrible, but he was part of the same circus. I went up front to ask if the network was acting up. The owner was there with the office manager, which was a little odd but not alarming. She said yes, IT was working on it, so I went back to the workroom. About 15 minutes later, the owner came in with the general manager and said they needed to talk privately. I assumed it was another job shuffle. She loved those. She was holding one of the company iPads used for intake photos, uploading client images into the electronic health record system. I'm not an Apple person, but I'd done exactly what they trained me to do. She turned the iPad toward me and showed me the account information. The device was registered to a name that wasn't any staff member. Her tone was icy. This is not okay. This is a HIPAA violation. I nodded because, sure, if that's true, we fix it. That's how my brain works. Okay, how do we fix it? I'm willing to help. She looked me straight in the face and said, "We fix it by terminating your employment." I genuinely thought I misheard her. "You're firing me?" "Yes." And I swear I saw the edge of a grin. The general manager looked like she was about to cry, wouldn't look at me. The owner didn't explain anything beyond repeating that I had to leave. So I left. I hugged coworkers I actually liked, cried like an idiot in front of people, and walked out while the owner hovered behind me like a nightclub bouncer. That was the moment it clicked. She didn't want a solution. She wanted a scapegoat. At first, the fallout was her own doing. I was friendly with the counselors. One of them had been on the fence about quitting, and I'd talked him into staying more than once. I got fired Friday, he resigned Monday. Then another left, then another. Suddenly, she was trying to run residential and day treatment with a skeleton crew. And then my part started. Because I knew the place inside and out, I'd been in nearly every role, I knew the money issues, the tech holes, the procedural mess, and the things people whispered about. And after that firing, I stopped protecting them. I filed for unemployment, then I started making calls. I contacted the Department of Health Services and filed a complaint about the privacy and procedure violations I'd seen. Then I called insurance companies, gave them the facility's tax ID and NPI, I knew them from billing, and told them to review what they'd been billed for and whether it matched contract terms. A few weeks later, unemployment flagged my account. My employer claimed I'd been terminated for negligence and misconduct. UI questioned me and they ruled I wasn't at fault, so benefits continued. Then the owner appealed, trying to cut me off and force repayment. Cue panic. Cue sleepless nights. Cue panic. Cue sleepless nights. Cue me reading statutes like my life depended on it because financially it kinda did. While I was preparing, I reached out to a former coworker who'd been there from the start. I asked if she recognized the name the iPad was registered to. She went quiet, then said, "That's an ex-client," meaning the iPad likely wasn't properly wiped before being used for intake photos tied to health records. A mess created by ownership, not by me, and now they'd used it as a weapon. At the appeal hearing, they showed up unprepared. The owner didn't even properly present a case. Her daughter tried to defend it with no evidence, no statutes, no documentation. The judge kept warning them about being under oath and pointed out inconsistencies. When it was my turn to ask questions, I kept it simple. Was I the only one who used that iPad? I don't know. But you knew enough to fire me for it? Silence. Was the iPad new or used? It was new. Then why was it registered to another person? Long pause. Do you know who it was registered to? No. An ex-client, I said. The judge's tone changed immediately. The judge asked what statute I'd violated. They couldn't name one. They tried to stall and asked the owner for help mid-hearing, and the judge shut it down. 2 days later, I got the decision in the mail. I won. Not long after, I got contacted by an investigator asking about the iPad situation. Then I got a letter that made my stomach drop. My complaint was being moved up. Federal. I didn't plan some cinematic takedown. I didn't wake up dreaming of destroying anyone. I just refused to be the convenient body they shoved under the bus to hide their own incompetence. Last I heard, the owner suddenly stopped showing up, employees were leaving in waves, and the place was getting the kind of attention you don't want when you've been cutting corners in healthcare. She fired me thinking I'd fold, disappear, and stay quiet. Instead, she handed me the match, and her whole pile of dry lies did what dry piles do. This wasn't karma. Karma's lazy storytelling. This was consequences. They falsified responsibility, ignored procedure, mishandled protected data, and then doubled down under oath without preparation. You didn't exaggerate, you didn't embellish. You just answered questions honestly and let the structure they'd abused do its job. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.